Hello and welcome to the Fintech Show. Now in today's episode, we're going to be learning all we can about the benefits of open banking for financial institutions because of the significant amount of openness and personalization can provide their customers. And as you can tell, this episode is very special. Yes, because of Corona, half of it was shot during lockdown and half of it just before, but that doesn't stop FinTech Finance. We've still got brilliant speakers from around the world to participate in today's episode. So joining me, we have speakers from Krungsri Bank over in Thailand, Banco Sabadell, Nordea and Meniga to provide the ultimate insight into open banking.
What new services do you think we're going to see in the future that have come out as a result of open banking?
Yeah, there are many that kind of nascent services that I think will grow tremendously. Many of them revolve around helping people kind of become smarter consumers and find discounts and loyalty at merchants, or even give those services power of attorney so they can automatically find better rates and so on. And what is becoming much easier with open banking is moving money around. So there's a lot of new services offering people to easily transfer their savings or funds from one bank to the other, and also looking at their subscriptions. And there are many examples that are being worked on that I think we will see flourish in the next few years.
With so much information available now and so much data available now, I forget the figure, but the amount of data in the world doubles like every 4 seconds or whatever it may be. What are some of the opportunities that you can do as a bank when it comes to personalization?
Well, I think this is about meeting the customer where they want to be met and servicing them in the way that they want to be served. So, of course, this is not so much about what do we want to do with data and personalization. It's more about what does the customer expect us to do when it comes to personalizing our service offerings to their particular needs. You mentioned Monzo just a while ago. So one of the things they do very well is that they allow customers to customize the way in which they see their app. So, if, for example, you don't like looking at your balance because it's always about bad news, you can put that on further down the page and you can choose what elements of information you see first and almost customize the entire experience to your own liking. I think that's a way of offering customers the ability to customize the experience to their own likes. But of course, there's also the use of data to really anticipate what the customer might be needing from you. So, of course, the whole idea of hyper-personalizing the customer experience really gives us the possibility to imagine and to design how we want to interact with customers, almost as if we were an intimate partner that knows them very, very well, that can anticipate their needs and that can serve them and give them offers that are relevant at that particular point of time for them.
So what is Nordea doing in this space when it comes to hyper-personalization?
Right, so we're getting our data in place. We have a unit that is in charge of understanding customer behavior. We're following we're initiating dialogues in a completely different way with customers, really trying to understand not what is it that you expect from us, but what are the things that concern you? What are the things that concern you in life? It's more of a friendly dialogue just to really try to understand what is it that they do in daily lives, and then trying to match our capabilities with that and trying to develop new capabilities and services that are able to address the specific needs that they have, not just from a bank, but from a more overall life perspective.
One of the most exciting things about these partnerships and about this digitization is the opportunity when it comes to personalization, because it's like having your own team of personal bankers, the fact that there's automation on the data on yourself. What are some of the things that you're doing within the personalization space for your consumers?
Okay. I could say in both of the banking and the fintech thing. Right now, I think we are working very hard on the personalization. I think we're coming with a new term, hyper personalization. So more than personalized, I mean, we have to know and understand customer, offer the right products at the right time, at the right place. This is the motto of the bank, that we are working very hard. We are using the data science team to offer the product. Also, the bank in Thailand, we could say that most of the big bank in Thailand has what we call the super app mobile banking application. We're not just only offering the banking products to the customers. We are offering that you can do the hotel booking on the our mobile app. You can use booking the Uber or Grab in our app as well, because we would like to know all the data, that customer lifestyle, and create the super app, because we need to understand more. We need to personalize the right product to the right customer. So this is what we have been doing very hard. I think most of the top banks in Thailand are working very hard and the reason is that we are finding the startup of fintech who could help us as well, who have the data that we could leverage on this product and offering to the customer. Either the same, the fintech, some of the fintech that we have invested in right now, using what we call the robo-advisor to understand and also to offer the right product using the robo to offering to the customer, because the product is quite mass. The customer has a big chunk. You cannot offering them by using a sales staff to offer the product right now. So they are building the robo advisor to be one of the help from the bank or from that fintech startup to recommend the right product to customer. So we do have a wealth management, robo-advisor wealth management platform that we have invested in. And they are one of the biggest in Southeast Asia now on the robo-advisor wealth management platform. So they use this personalization to either communicate with customers.
What do you think have been some of the biggest changes in the finance industry since the adoption of open banking? Do you think it's been more of a cultural one, or do you think really bankers are finally starting to get to grips with the technical side of things?
So I think it has been a little bit of both, and probably there's a lot of changes that are yet to be implemented. I think from a technical standpoint, one of the kind of key challenges, or the key challenges, have been developing an API framework for all financial institutions, and enable an architecture that it's able to sustain queries from third parties, and also launching a data strategy. And then from a comparison standpoint, you can make sure that you're able to offer and demand data input, so you can develop products that are more tailored to your clients. And then also on the cultural side, I guess the biggest change has been a change of mindset in terms of data ownership, where now the client is kind of the central to the data and the final owner, and the corporation is able to exploit that data for the ultimate benefit of the client. So this is about being really client-centric, being able to provide services during a customer journey, either if the customer journey sits within the traditional channels of the bank or not, and being able to adapt yourself as a financial institution to sometimes be the partner, sometimes be the manufacturer of the product, sometimes be the distributor, and deliver an open strategy that positions yourself in a way that you not only comply with PSD2, but you're able to access kind of the revenue streams that are available now through this open banking and PSD2 regulation.
How culturally do you bring about a transformation to put customer and digital first? What's the methodology behind that in order to have kind of that personal cultural shift?
I'm really glad you've asked that question, because of course the core banking transformation program that we engaged in was laying a foundation for us to be able to develop new digital value propositions. But of course, for us, the digital transformation is not so much about technology. Perhaps this might be controversial, but I think technology is disposable. Technology will change, will continue to change, and something else will come and replace the technologies that we're seeing today. However, when we talk about a digital transformation, we're really trying to transform the way in which we think about the entire value chain of our business. How do we develop products and services? How do we put them into production? How do we engage with customers? How do we manage customer experience? And ultimately, how do we deliver that value that customers are looking for? So there's a number of things that we're doing to embrace this whole digital mindset and really complete the digital transformation outside of just technology. We do things like we're starting to experiment. We're starting to say, well, could we perhaps engage customers and see if they really want this product that we're thinking that we're to develop? And we've already got some great examples in FX trading, where we've developed products to a conceptual level. We've done MVPs, and we've engaged customers very openly saying, we're thinking of developing this product. Can you please give us some feedback? Can you please try this prototype and tell us whether it's something that you would like to purchase in the future, whether it addresses one of your needs. And then by doing that, we start collecting feedback from the customer that helps us either develop the product in a way that the customer will find value in it, or entirely scratch the product and start thinking again about how we can serve our customers. That really signifies a huge departure from the traditional way of developing products in banks, where we have big investments, many, many months in production until we roll out something that is almost perfect. And that's one of the ways in which we're changing the mindset. We also believe that digital has to be experienced. So I can tell you a lot about cool things that other companies are doing in terms of digital, but it's not really until you experience the convenience of just pressing a button and getting what you want that you really get it. So we expose our leaders and our executives to what we call experiential learning programs. In some cases, we've taken a handful of them over to Silicon Valley or over to China, where we get them to see how the digital developments from some of the digital leaders in industries look like. We expose them to talks, conferences, meetings with leaders in this space to inspire them and to really get them to see that there's a very different way of doing things in digital companies. Innovation, the way we're approaching innovation, it's quite a departure from the traditional way of innovating in banks. We traditionally have always thought that, we're a bank, we have lots of money, let's innovate internally. And while that's been successful to some extent, we now realize that we don't have the monopoly on good ideas. There is fantastic innovation taking place outside the bank. And it makes very little sense for us to try to copy that innovation when we have the option to partner with these companies. Companies that have faster speed to market, that have great innovation, that are able to iterate faster than we can, represent a great opportunity for us to partner with them and then explore the development of products and services that can really delight our customers. So it's just a few examples of things that we're doing to really instill this digital mindset in the organization.
In Scandinavia, a lot of the traditional banks have actually taken that position of the challenger bank themselves. Can you tell us a bit more about the banking infrastructure there?
Yeah, and I mean, that's an excellent point. But it matters in which areas. In some areas, like cashback rewards is a good example, it's much more likely to be successful if you have scale. Like the neobanks are in the Nordics, but if they offer loyalty solutions to merchants, they maybe reach 100 or 200,000 users, which is not that interesting. What we are doing is bringing the biggest banks together so they can combine their scale and have a solution that reaches more than 50% of the market. Now that's a really interesting advertising channel for the merchants. So that's makes strategic sense. Focus on the use cases where scale matters. There you will win the neobanks even if they have the same technology because of your scale.
How has the financial industry changed over the last couple of years since open banking and PSD2 came in?
I've been in this business for 10 years and I've never seen the speed of change as much as now. It really is a game changer. So these mega trends, open banking is one, transition to more cloud and SaaS solution is another. And what this is unleashing a lot of investment in innovation. So both fintechs and banks have to innovate at a much faster speed. And a lot of these projects that were started 1 or 2 years ago when open banking became fashionable are now kind of seeing the light of day. And there are many still yet to come.
Yeah, I can imagine. A lot of institutions talked big at the beginning, saying how they were open and looking to be open. What have been some of the real use cases you've seen that the banks have finally embraced open banking?
Yeah, I think that's the key word, use cases. I mean, open banking is meaningless unless you can transform it into something that means something for real people and users, so good use cases. There are some quite interesting. The obvious one, obviously, helping people just understand and manage their money. That's one that Meniga has been doing for many years, but there's a lot of new, very interesting one. One example that we've been focusing on and introduced at Finovate New York last autumn is helping people understand their carbon footprint based on their transactions. There's a lot of talk about climate change, and a lot of people want to be able to take action. Some are offsetting their carbon footprint, but doing it piecemeal, maybe flight by flight. But it's fairly easy to estimate one's carbon footprint based on kind of a holistic view of people's transactions and make it really easy to offset. So that's one area where banks and others can expand their role as an advisor and give people that want to, not a bad conscience, but the option to easily offset and understand their carbon footprint.
Do you think some of the larger institutions, by partnering with Meniga, can actually be in a better position than some of the challenger banks that they were so scared of maybe 5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of overlap in competition, partnering, and so on. And if you look at what the neobanks, why they've been successful, it's not because they have the super sophisticated AI algorithms. It's because they've done the simple things right. It's easy to onboard. It's very simple user experience. So less is more in that sense. And I think that is one area that all the big banks can and already have to a degree learned from. So we have, for example, been part of several successful launches over the past year where the user experience offered by an incumbent bank is already at par or exceeding the neobanks. An example is the app Moe in Portugal, whereby one of the more traditional banks there, Crédito Agrícola, that is being favorably compared to both Revolut and N26 in the Portuguese market. We have launched mobile applications with UniCredit, one of our main partners in Europe and in Eastern Europe, that have been getting extremely good ratings. We were a big part of an app in Singapore and Italy with different banks that are kind of top of the market. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of good examples out there. A few more examples of a very interesting project we are involved in is we are building merchant-funded cashback rewards in the Nordics with some of the leading banks there, Swedbank and Nordea. And this is going live in a few months, where users can seamlessly earn cashback on their spending. This means that if they opt into this service, they will be targeted by merchants where they are kind of likely, but only those that are likely to be interested in based on their kind of purchase history. And some people won't bother, will just see this as airline miles, but they will still randomly go to the coffee shops and sometimes get cashback rewards, but there's no downside to it. But others are highly influenced by these rewards and can make very meaningful kind of amount of money. We're extremely excited about these launches in the Nordics.
I want to talk a little bit about revenue streams, because I always find that very interesting of how, particularly on the retail side, how a bank actually makes money. Yeah. Because in the US, for example, it's almost anticipated there'll be fees for current accounts. In the UK, people would bulk at that. So what are some of the potential opportunities for future revenue streams from a bank?
Right, this is really interesting for me. And I think first we need to realize that the existing bank business model for banks has been used for the past 600 years, right? Banks make most of their revenue through commissions, fees, interests, and penalties. And the business model has remained almost unchanged for that many years. Now, of course, what we're seeing now is that there's less and less demand for the traditional banking services. And customers are turning to us and say, well, you already know so much about me. How can you add new value to my experience? What additional value propositions can you bring using all that information that you have from me? So I think this is not so much about what new lines of revenue can we find. It's more about how can we serve our customer in new ways? How can we deliver different value propositions to them? And of course, the revenue will follow, right? If you're servicing a need that your customer has, the revenue will follow as a result. But I think we want to put the focus more on, can we reimagine what it's like to offer value to customers? Can we relearn what it is to service and provide new value propositions to our customers? So in that vein, of course, we're looking at imagining and designing what those value propositions could be. Data, of course, is a very interesting area to explore and ways in which we can start offering new value. You have, for example, lifestyle banking. There's some banks in Asia that are doing this already, and it works very cleverly. So let's say that I give permission to my bank to use my data. And then the bank develops an understanding of my preferences as a consumer that allows the bank to act as a concierge for me as a customer. Right? Now, the bank doesn't profit from that directly from me in any way, but they offer me a value in which they say, well, we know you so well that we will help you navigate the real world by bringing relevant offers to your table, by making you aware of things that you might be interested in buying or services that you might be interested in consuming. Now, what the bank does is it turns to the other side of the supply chain and says to the merchants out there, I have a really fine-tuned, curated platform with information about my customers. Now, I will not give you the data, but I can help matchmake between you and customers that are most likely to be wanting to buy your products and services. And then, of course, if you want to have access to that matchmaking capability, you'll have to pay me as a bank. So that's a way in which some banks are exploring new ways of making revenue, but it's all predicated on offering new value to customers. And in this case, the value of being a concierge to their needs.
I like that. It's almost expanding what the likes of JCB and Amex have almost kind of prided, that kind of, they obviously, it's a personalization service, but for more of you kind of, your corporate high net worths, as opposed to trying to be able to do that at scale.
Yeah.
So the kind of question is, how are you able to do that across, rather than, a couple of thousand people, how are you able to scale that across millions?
Yes. Indeed. So I think in this example I was giving you, the effort is very much put on developing this really highly intelligent database with a lot of AI and algorithms that really are just trying to get one thing right, is what's the likelihood of the consumer making the next decision being X or Y, right? And with that level of predictability, then the management can take place. It's just an example of ways in which banks can use data to deliver new value to customers. Now, you of course have other models that we're starting to see in banks where point of sale loans, for example, or even post-point of sale loans where the bank can say, oh, well, you've actually just spent €1,000 buying this TV. We don't need to take the money straight out of your account. You would like to defer the payment in 4 installments. It's ways of adding additional value to customers that banks need to start exploring.
Where do you think banks are going to be making their money going on in the future, now that payments is less of a kind of expected revenue stream?
I guess as you've mentioned, with payments, and big tech's also tackling kind of this industry, just because it's the one that probably is the most massive, with most volume one, and easier to tackle, also from a regulation standpoint. But there is a lot of business in the and revenue streams within the core of banking, and definitely new ones coming up. But I think in general, more than one particular niche of pool of revenue, what we will see is that the financial experience have to be more of an end-to-end approach in terms of being able to facilitate finance within the customer journey that is already being built through other kind of products and services, or even startups that are launching. So you have to be present from a financial product standpoint in this kind of customer experience, without sometimes having to have the client come back to you for that product in particular.
How do you fit into this huge open banking scenario and really help the institutions grapple with what is quite an exciting prospect?
We are innovation partners mostly to big banks. So we are, in a nutshell, we're helping big banks compete and match and exceed what the neobanks are doing in some sense. We made a choice some years ago to kind of not be an infrastructure player. We focus higher up the stack. So we focus on actual use cases. There are several use cases: personal finance management, carbon offsetting is an example, and carbon accounting, cashback rewards. And our measure of success is, do the users really like it? Is the user experience excellent? Are they engaged? Are the numbers, kind of engagement metrics, so that we can confidently say this is a successful? Is the customer satisfied? So and how we do that, we have a best-in-class data enrichment. We have modern APIs where we work alongside the banks we work with to build those new solutions. We give them APIs, consulting, support, so they can integrate those solutions into their digital banking, mobile and online banking channels.
Thanks for watching this special episode of the Fintech Show. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to check out our next episode and more at www.fintechf.com. See ya.